Hello everyone, hope you are doing great. Welcome to Infinity Concepts. This is Adit Shah, your coach and instructor for quantitative methods. So we are starting with the subject quantitative methods, and the first chapter that we are going to do is time value of money. Remember, quantitative methods, the weightage range that has been given by CFA Institute is 8 to 12%. So roughly around 10% is the weightage of this particular subject in the examination. It is fairly weighted, like there are 10 subjects for CFA level 1, and 10% is the weightage given to quantitative methods. So it is fairly being tested. But one thing that my commerce friends and students need to understand is that for you all, this particular subject is going to be a little bit difficult than the ones who are coming from the science background. So all the commerce students, you need to give a little bit of more efforts on this particular subject, because there are chapters like hypothesis testing, sampling and estimation, permutations, and probability, and all of these things are done by science students in their background and during their graduation. But commerce students wouldn't have done this particular thing. So all the commerce students, just a brief that I want to give you at the start of the subject itself, so that you put your focus more in this particular subject. Okay, so let us just start with time value of money, which is the first chapter that we are going to look at. Very interesting, too many sums, and yes, this is going to be used in this particular chapter. Rather, I would say throughout quantitative methods, the whole subject, we will be using the calculator some or the other way. And this subject, we are going to lay the foundation for how to use the calculators. Too many things that we are going to learn in calculator. What we learn in this particular subject is going to be repeated and used in other subjects like derivatives, or fixed income, and equity. At many other places, what we learn in the quantitative methods, okay, how to use the calculator, that will be used in other subjects. So let us not spend too much time on introduction. So what exactly introduction is? Introduction to time value of money, that is TVM, understanding the calculator, discounting rate, what a discounting rate is, annual interest rate and effective annual rate, annuity and perpetuity, and there are various sums that we are going to solve in this particular chapter. So around 10-12 sums that we are going to do. Fairly, you will be understanding how to use the calculator. This is what we are going to learn. So let us just simply go ahead and start with the chapter. Okay, introduction to time value of money. TVM, the full form is time value of money. What the inherent name itself says, time value of money, is that money always has a value over time, which means that whatever the value of 1 rupee or $1 was in 1970, the same value it is not today. For you right now, $1 or 1 rupee is not as much as what it would have been for your grandparents 50 years back, 40, 50 years back. You can go and ask your grandparents what value they had for 1 rupee or $1 at that point of time 50 years back. That much value you don't have today for 1 rupee or $1. For you, yes, 100 rupees or $100 will have that much value, the way they used to have at that point of time in 1970s and 1980s, at that point of time. Which means that time value of money has increased. Money has a time value. As and when time goes by, as and when one day, one year goes by, the value of the money decreases. Which means what 1 rupee or $1 was 50 years back, that has now increased to either $1 has now increased to $20, or what they used to think 1 rupee as, you are now thinking that as 100 rupees. This is what the difference is. This is what we are going to now calculate as to what would be 1 rupee at that point of time in 1970s, which now became 100 rupee. So what is the rate is what we are going to calculate. How much should 1 rupee grow to at this point of time? Should it be 100 rupees today, or it should be 120 rupees today, or it should be 170 rupees today? What it is, the rate at which it grows, that is what we need to find. Or else we can go backwards. The backwards is like, say for example, $20 it is today. What would it have been 50 years back? Was that equal to $1 at that point of time, or half a dollar at that point of time, or $2 at that point of time? $20 today, what was that 50 years back? So either you go ahead, 1 rupee becoming 100 rupee today, or 200 rupees today, that is what you need to calculate. Or you need to calculate backwards. 100 rupee, what was that 50 years back? Was it 1 rupee, or was it a half a rupee, or 2 rupees, or 1.5 rupees? What was that? The value in equal terms, what it was. This is what we mean by time value of money. Remember, in finance, every single day, money is having a value. You cannot keep money idle for even a single day. Even if you have money for one particular day, you need to calculate the interest of that. 1 rupee today or $1 today is not equal to $1 tomorrow. If one day has passed by, then one day's interest should have been included in that. So 1 rupee today or $1 today will be equal to maybe $1.1 after 1 year, or 1.1 rupee after 1 year, right? Which means 10% interest has been accrued. If 1 is becoming 1.1 after 1 year, it means 10% has been included in it. Now, if someone says that today I want to give $1 to you, or tomorrow after 1 year I want to give $1.1 to you, and if 10% is the interest rate in your mind, then both means one and the same. Whether I give 1 today or 1.1 after 1 year, both means one and the same. If the market interest rate going in the market is 10%. If I give you $1 today, you go in the bank and give 10%. You get 10% as the interest, and it ultimately becomes 1.1 after 1 year. Or else I don't give you $1 today to you, but after 1 year I give you $1.1. So in both the cases, you are getting $1.1 after 1 year, right? And therefore $1 today is equal to $1.1 tomorrow. So as you go in future, the price keeps on increasing. The value of money, it keeps on increasing. So in the past, the value of money is lower. The value of money is actually higher over here. So amount is lower, and over here the amount is higher, which means the value of money has actually reduced. So $1 over here is not equal to $1 over here. Value has decreased, and therefore now it is equal to $20 actually. Now going to value of money has never remained the same because of its inherent nature to earn interest at every given point of time. Remember, in finance, money never remains idle. It is always deployed to earn at least risk-free rate of interest. So be it 1 year or even 1 day. Our calculations will incorporate interest component of that much period for how much ever period it is there. So money never remains idle. When you are comparing two things, if you are getting a cash flow at today's date and a cash flow at a later date, then you will have to compare considering the time value of money. You cannot directly compare each other. $100 today is not equal to $100 after 7 days. Both are going to be different. Obviously, $100 today is having a higher value than $100 after 7 days. Correct? So we'll now move ahead. Present value of what is the present value and future value? Year 2020, which is the COVID year, okay, the COVID year 2020, 2,000 rupees is going ahead and becoming 25,000 rupees when it reaches in 2050, which is 30 years later. 2020 today, okay, let us take this as today. 2020 is known as the present value because that is the today's date, and later on 2050, which is after 30 years, that is known as the future value. So PV and FV are the terminologies that we are going to again and again use. PV is today's rate, the today's money or amount as of today, whatever is known as the present value, and later on is known as the future value. So 2000 becomes 25,000. Now, how has interest got compounded in it? This is what we are going to learn later on in this chapter itself. Now remember, there are two terms that we will be using, compounding and discounting. So 2000, when it goes ahead in future, we call it as compounding. Compounded rate is going to be, say for example, 10%. Then at 10% per annum, 2000 becomes 25,000 at the end of 30 years in 2050. The word that we use is compound. Compounding means when you bring 2000 ahead in time by 30 years. That is known as compounding. Discounting means when you bring behind by 30 years, from 2050 you bring it behind to today's date. That is known as discounting. Discounting means pulling it backwards. Compounding means throwing it ahead. So we are learning discounting. Discounting means pulling it behind. By how many years? Right now we are talking about 30 years. It is going from 2050 to 2020. This is known as discounting. So in discounting, what are you going to do? You are going to bring it behind by 30 years. This is known as the discounting, and discounted rate is 10% if you are bringing it behind by 10%. Correct? So 25,000, when you bring it behind to 2000, over the period of 30 years, you are pulling it backwards. This is known as discounting. When you are throwing it ahead, that is compounding. How are you going to calculate? 2000, when you move ahead by 30 years, which is compounded. So 2000, when it gets compounded, over here we have taken 8% as the interest or the discount rate or a compound rate. Right now we are doing compounding, so we will use the word compound rate. However, remember that compound rate and discounting rate is going to be same. Both are one and the same. But the terminologies that we use is different, because when I use the word compound rate, even though it is 8%, same as discounting rate that we have used over here. So discount rate and compound rate is same. Though I will use the term as compounding when I want to actually bring from 2020 to 2050. And I will be using the word discount rate being 8% only, okay, nothing different than compound rate. But the word that I will be using is discount rate when I want to bring it behind from 2050 to 2020. Remember, the future value is always going to be higher. $1 what it was for your grandfather or for your grandparents, any of your parents, grandparents, whoever, $1 earlier is now equal to $100 today. So remember, in future the value is always going to be more. In past the value was small. This is what you need to always remember. So compounding is 2000, what we took over here. This 2000 into 1 plus 8 to the power 30, which means 2000 into 1.08. This is for 1 year, but like that we want to go ahead for 30 more years. So 1.08 to the power 30, when you do, you are going to get a figure. Just as an example, if it turns out to 25,000, we will see how to use the calculator. It is just a matter of 2 seconds that we can use this particular thing, but we will use it in some more time. And if you want to come behind by 30 years, then what you will have to do? The same 25,000 whichever you have got, you have to discount that with a discounting rate. You are moving behind. So when you discount, you are going to put 25,000 divide by, what is this thing? 1.08. That is for 1 year to the power 1. Instead of 1, we will be taking over here 30 years because we want to go behind by 30 years. This is what is known as discounting. This is what is known as compounding. Now understanding the calculator. Very important. Those who are very curious to learn calculator, first understand two things that you will have to always remember. One thing that we will do over here, we will set our calculator to a 4 decimal digit calculator, because this is what we will have to use. We will require 4 decimal places many of the places. So don't keep 2 decimal places and don't keep 6-7 decimal digits. Otherwise you will get confused at a point of time. 4 decimal digits are more than enough. So that is one thing that right now we will be doing. One more thing that you will always have to remember, whenever you take calculator in your hand, you will have to always remember this thing. Clear all working notes. Why? Because this calculator actually has a memory and it keeps all the workings in it. So if you don't clear your working notes at after every sum or a problem, then what is going to happen is your earlier sum or earlier problems details will already be feeded inside, and you then again feed the new problems detail, then it is going to be a problem. Why? Because you will be getting a wrong answer, because all the numbers would then have got jumbled up. Even the previous question's numbers and this question's number would have jumbled up inside in the memory of the calculator. So this is one thing that always you'll have to remember. Because of this, so many people or so many students get wrong answer in the examination, and they don't know why they are not getting the answer. They just get confused what is happening around. But very silly thing, like in spite of knowing the whole question, the whole answer, yet you will get confused in examination just because you would not have cleared the working notes. Okay, so you will have to hammer this inside your mind that you don't have to, that you will have to clear the working notes. Okay, so first time what are we doing? First, what we are going to do is we are going to reset the calculator to 4 decimal digits. So first you are going to on that calculator by pressing it over here. I hope you are able to see. So press the calculator over here on the calculator. Once you on the calculator, what you are going to do is click on second over here. There is a second over here. Click on second. Then click on decimal over here. After clicking on decimal, click on 4. So that is converting your calculator into 4 decimal digits. And then over here there is an enter on the topmost row. Click on enter. Now your calculator is forever converted into 4 decimal places. Now clear working notes over here. Just there is a clear. Just press that 2-3 times and you are done. Your calculator is now a 4 decimal digit calculator. Now this is done. Now throughout your life you don't have to change this particular thing. This will remain as 4 decimal digit only until and unless you change your battery. Okay, let us move ahead. Now what are different things that we are going to learn? Now we already used the second over here. There is a button over here. Once you punch this second, all the figures over here that are written above the numbers or above the punching pads, okay, above the pad, whatever is written, that is activated. As soon as you press on second over here, all of these things which is written on the calculator, not on the numbers, okay, above the number 1 2 3, there is something above 4 5 6, above plus, above equal to, everywhere something is written, that has been activated once you press second over here. So the function for second is to activate all the secondary numbers. The second thing is CPT. CPT means what? Above second there is CPT. CPT means compute. Once you have feeded some of the details, then when you want to get some answer, at that point of time it will be called as compute. So you will click on compute so that the answer gets computed. Plus minus is something that you will be using if you want to convert a positive number into a negative number. Then 100, and negative, if you want to put the plus minus negative sign, you will have to use. CEC is clear. CEC is clear or erase or clear. Then there is something known as 1 by x over here. Next to division sign, there is 1 divided by x. If you want to convert 25 into 1 by 25, what is 1 divided by 25? You don't know. So what are you going to do? You are going to press 25 and then immediately click on 1 divided by x. So it will give you answer of 1 divided by 25. So that is 0.04. So answer for this is 0.04. How did you do it? 25 and then click on 1 divided by x. So x is something that you have already put over here. So first click on 25, which is your x, and then click on 1 divided by x. So that 25 actually becomes 1 divided by 25. The answer is 0.04. The next one is y to the power x. Below 1 divided by x, there is y to the power x. Y to the power x means if you want to calculate what is 25 to the power 7 or 25 to the power 1 divided by 7. Now this is a very difficult thing. How will you do it? this calculator can do this. How is this calculator going to do this? Let us see. Y to the power x. Now you want to calculate 25 to the power 7. So first you do 25, click 25, then put y to the power x, click on y to the power x. So now you have reached up. You first clicked on 25, then you clicked on y to the power x. So now you have moved up over here. What is up over here? 7. So click on 7 and then do is equal to, you will get a figure. You get a huge figure, 61035155625. This is what 25 to the power 7 is. Now let us do 25 to the power 1 by 7. This is difficult. There is actually a bracket over here. 25 to the power 1 divided by 7. If it was 1 divided by 2, I would say it is 0.5. But 1 divided by 7, I don't know. So how are we going to do? 25 to the power 1 divided by 2 is also difficult. We can't find. But 25 y to the power x 0.5, this we can do. But can you do 25 to the power 1 divided by 7? That's difficult. So now how to do? This 61035 and thing is there. Just clear that. So that has been cleared. Now put 25, then move up because now we want to move over here. So we will be clicking on y to the power x. Once you have punched y to the power x, open the bracket because we don't know what is 1 divided by 7. For that, what we will have to do is open the brackets. There is an open sign above 7. So open the bracket, 1, then divide, then 7, close the bracket. Once you close the bracket, that 0.1429 has come. So they have actually given you answer of 1 divided by 7, which is 0.1429. But they have not yet given you the answer of 25 to the power 0.1429. So click on is equal to and you get 1.5838. This is what your 25 to the power 1 divided by 7 is. If say for example I tell you to find out 4 to the power 1 by 6. Again it is difficult. Let us see what it is. 4, go up. So y to the power x. Now 1 divided by 6 I don't know. So I will have to, if it was just 6, I would have clicked on 6 is equal to. But now we don't know 1 divided by 6 and therefore first open the bracket. 1 divided by 6, close the bracket, is equal to, it gives me 1.2599, which is 1.26. This is the answer. Okay, this is how we are going to use y to the power x. Now going to the other functions which are over here, n, iy, pv, pmt and fv. This is the one that we will also be using extensively in the fixed income chapter. In the fixed income chapter, all the 5 fixed income securities as a subject itself, okay, and there is a valuation chapter as well where we are definitely going to use extensively n, iy, pv, pmt and fv. N is the number of periods, number of years or number of periods. If it is a semi-annual coupon bond or something, we will see that when we come later on, okay. Don't take so much of load on you. N is number of periods that you need to understand. For the time being, you understand this is number of years. So N is the number of years. Actually, it is number of periods. We will see later on what periods are. For the time being, you understand number of years. IY is the rate of interest for that particular period. We are talking about 1 year right now. So what is the yield or rate of interest yield over a period of that 1 year? PV is the present value. What is the value right now? PMT is the regular cash flow that you are getting over that period. So for that period, what is the cash flow that you are getting at a regular interval? So whatever the number of years that you have taken or number of periods that you have taken, if say for example you have taken 10 periods over here, then PMT is the regularly for that 10 period, what is the exact amount that you have got or you have received or you have paid, that exact amount, all the 10 periods, that exact amount that you have paid or received, that you will have to put down over here in PMT. And FV is the future value. At the future value, at the rate that you have considered over here, what is it going to become? If $1 is becoming $20 after 50 years from 1970 to 2020, then we are going to put $1 over here as the present value, and it is becoming how much? $20 is what it is becoming after 50 years. So 50 is the number of periods. What is the regular cash flow that you are getting? You are actually not getting any cash flow. This $1 you have put in bank for 50 years from 1970 to 2020, that $1 has remained in the bank account. So bank is not giving you interest, it is getting actually compounded, whatever it is. Bank is not giving you any interest. Otherwise, if it would have given you some interest at a regular interval for all the 50 years, every year, if it would have given you something, you would have put out over here. Right now they have not given you anything, so 0. And this is what you are going to compute when you will be using CPT. So when you do compute, you will get the rate of interest that the bank is giving you. If the bank has converted your $1 into $20 after 50 years, what is the rate of interest that the bank has given you? So that is, it has grown from 1 to 20. This is what you will be getting. If, say for example, they have given you 7% as the interest rate, and they tell you what will $1 become in 50 years if 7% is the interest that is given to you, then this is what you can find out. See, out of 5 things, 4 should be given to you. If 4 is given to you, one thing you can find out on your own. This will become, say for example, 18, just as an example. This is what you have found out. So if 4 things are given to you, any one thing you can find out. If, say for example, these things are given to you, n is not given to you, you can find out n if the other 4 things are given to you. Correct? Now remember one thing, always out of PV and FV, one thing has to be a negative amount. One thing has to be a negative amount. You will have to put 1. You will have to put 1 in the bank. So that bank gives you 18 after 50 years. Over here, what are we able to see? We are able to see over here that your $1 after 50 years at 8% per annum, whatever the interest rate is, $1 is becoming something. What is it becoming? Say for example, it is becoming 20. What does it mean? $1 that you put inside the bank, so that money is going out of your pocket. This money is going out of your pocket. $1 is going out of your pocket, and therefore it has to be a negative amount. 50 years later, bank is giving you $20 back, and therefore this is going to be a positive amount. Or you can do vice versa. If you are a bank, for you in 1970 you are getting $1, so take $1 as a positive amount, and after 50 years bank will have to, that is you will have to give to the customer back, and that will be a negative amount. The calculator itself will throw a negative amount of 20 if you have put 1 as a positive amount. Or else if you put 1 as a negative amount, then 20 as a positive amount you will be getting by the calculator itself. The calculator itself will throw. But for that you will first have to put a negative 1. Okay. So don't get confused when minus 20 is shown on your calculator, or if you put minus 1 and then you get a positive amount of 20. Don't get shocked to see that. Always either of them will have to be a negative amount. This is what you will have to fit in your mind inside. First thing that you will have to fit inside your mind is clear all working notes. This is what you should not anytime forget. The second thing that you will have to remember is always PV or FV, at least one of them will have to be a negative amount. And if you just take my words, if you just take my advice, always keep PV as negative amount, so that you don't have to take any tension of what is FV and so on. Always put in a normal circumstances, PV is going to be a negative amount. So you never make a mistake. Okay. Always PV you will have to take as negative amount. Ideally, any one of them can be taken as a negative amount, but just as a practice, always we will take PV as a negative amount. The answer that you get, that is the FV that you take, will always be a positive amount. Correct? This is what we will be always remembering. Now we will move ahead. To find PV, bring the cash flow to today's date by discounting. Now what happens is, this is today. Year 0 is always known as today's date. Today or right now is known as year 0, always. Remember, year 0 is today. Year 1 is 1 year from today. 1 year from today is always known as year 1. Year 2 means 2 years from today. Year 3 is 3 years from today. 4 years from today. 5 years from today. And this is how we signify year 0, 1, 2, 3, 4 and 5. Year 0, see this person, this is me, Adit Shah. I am right now standing at year 0. Today's date is known as year 0. In future, at year 1, that is 1 year from now exactly, I am going to get 100. I am going to get $100. 2 years from today, I am going to get another $100. 3 years from today, I am going to get another $100. 4 years from today, I will be getting 100. And 5 years from today, I will be getting 12,100. What is the present value of these cash flows is what we are calculating. Remember, $100 that you get at year 1 and $100 that you get at year 4 are not one and the same. Because of time value of money, the $100 at year 1 is going to be stronger than $100 at year 4. Remember, $1 in 1970, your grandparents used to value so much. The same $1 today, are you valuing that much the way your grandparents used to value that? Even if they are alive today, with God's grace, if they are alive today, the same $1 they are not going to value that much today, the way they used to value $1 50 years back. Same thing over here, it is not 50 years gap, we are seeing a gap of 4 years. Even if it is a gap of 1 year, this $100 is not equal to this $100, same thing. Why? Because there is a value of money. This $100 is actually more desirable to me than this particular $100. Its value is little bit lower, okay, not too much, little bit lower than what this $100 is at year 1. Correct? So the earlier you get the money, the better it is, because of time value of money. Right? We'll move ahead. Okay. Now we want to calculate what is the present value of this money. Now if I want to know what is the present value of this 100, because if I would have got 100 today, that will be even more desirable than this particular 100. So I want to calculate what is the value of this 100 in today's terms. The way $2,000, the way over here we see that 25,000 in today's term is 2,000 only. If you give 2,000 to one person today, or else you tell that a person that after 30 years I will give you $25,000, it is one and the same only. Whether you give 2,000 today or 25,000 after 30 years or 50 years, whatever. Over here there is a 30 years difference. So whatever, after 30 years, it means one and the same. Same thing over here, we are trying to calculate $100 over here. What is the value of $100 in today's term? You will have to discount. You are bringing it behind. You are throwing it behind to year 0. And therefore, you will have to discount. Discount. Say for example, 8% is the discounting rate or the interest rate going on in the market. That is 1.08 to the power 1, because this 100 has to come behind by how much? Only 1 year only. It has to come behind by 1 year. So divide by 1.08 to the power 1. So it comes to something, just as an example, it comes to 92. So today's 92 is worth 100 after 1 year. This 100 will be 100 divided by 1.08 to the power 2. Why? Because this 100 will have to travel behind by 2 years. This 100 will have to travel behind by 2 years, and therefore 100 divided by 1.08 to the power 2. So this 100 will become how much? Some 84 or something. Just as an example, okay? I'm not using the calculator right now. However, we will be learning everything on the calculator. Okay, we will be seeing that. This 100 will be divided by 1.08 to the power 3. This 100 will be 1.08 to the power 4. And this 12,100 will be divided by 1.08 to the power 5. Together it becomes, just as an example, 75. The value of this will be 66. And the value of this will be, just as an example, 11,000. As an example. Total in today's term, the value will be 11,400. Just as an example. See, you have technically got more amount. Together, when you are not discounting undiscounted cash flows over here, the undiscounted cash flows that we can see over here is around 12,600. 12,600 is undiscounted cash flows when you are not discounting it. But when you are discounting it by 1 year, this 100 by 1 year, this 100 by 2 year, this 100 by 3 year, you are discounting it. Discounting means bringing it behind. You are actually discounting it by 3 years, 4 years, and this 12,100 you are discounting it by 5 years. See, because it is divided by 1.08 to the power 5, which means it is getting discounted by 5 years. Discounted cash flows are 11,400 only. Discounted cash flows are 11,400. Undiscounted cash flows are total. Just count all of them. It is 12,600. So these are the two terms that we are learning. Undiscounted cash flows means when you are not discounting, just simply add 12,100 plus 100, 100, 100, 100. When you do, you get 12,600. This is the undiscounted cash flows. And discounted cash flows are 11,400 when you actually take your calculator and actually you calculate this, you convert into 92, then the next 100 you convert into 84, this 100 you convert into 75, 66 and 11,000. So much of work that you have done is to calculate the present value or discounted cash flows. The discounted cash flows are 92, 84, 75 and this is known as discounted cash flows are 11,400. You call it as present value of all of these numbers. If I tell you find out the present value of 100, 100, 100, 100, 12, 100, the present value of that will be 11,400. If I can tell you what is the present value of that 100, the one that you are getting at year 1, then you will say 92 is the present value. And if I tell you what is the present value of just 12,100, you will say 11,000 is the present value. And what is the present value of all of these numbers? You will say 11,400 is the present value, which is your discounted cash flows. Okay. You know what are we doing right now? We are just understanding the terms because we are again and again going to use these terms. And level 1 being the base, even if you know a little bit, hear out each and everything from me. If you don't know anything, if the subject is if the whole thing is quite new for you, well and good. You will have to definitely hear out from me each and every word. Even though I am repeating 2 times, 3 times, yet you will have to remember all of these things. Listen to all of these things because it is required. Because only if it gets hammered in your mind, the way A, B, C, D, E, F, the whole thing is hammered in your mind while you were in your first standard or in your kindergarten. The same way what we are doing is we are hammering things in your mind so that you don't get confused in future ever. So your base has to be strong. And therefore, even if I repeat 2 or 3 times, listen every time. Let us move ahead. Discount rates also equal to compound rates. Okay, both are one and the same. But what is that rate is? When you are bringing it behind, it is known as discounted rate. When you are multiplying and actually making it bigger and you are throwing that amount in future, the way $1 is becoming $20 in future, it grows. It grows at a compound rate. And when you bring behind, it means discounted rate. But both are one and the same only. Okay, the rate will be same whether you take 8% or 9% or 10%, whatever rate you take, both are going to be one and the same only, the rate. But the usage of the word is going to be different. Either you use the word as discount or you use the word as compound. If I use the word as discount, you will come to know what I am trying to say. I am trying to say go behind. If I use the word compound, you will understand that okay, Adit is telling me to actually go in future. Okay, this is what your discount and compound is. What is the discounting rate? Discounting of future cash flows are done at a discounting rate. All the future cash flows that we had seen, 100 was coming at year 1, another 100 was coming at year 2, another 100 was coming at year 3, 100 was coming at year 5. All the future rates, all the future cash flows are discounted to the current rate. At which rate? To the current date. At which rate? Discounting rate. So that is your discounting rate. Now what it is? We can either use the required rate of return or opportunity cost as the discounting rates. Now remember, how are we going to calculate discounting rates? What discounting rate actually is? Say for example, your grandparents had put $1 in bank account in 1970s. That $1 would have grown to $20 today. Why? Because bank was giving you an interest. That interest is nothing but the discounting rate that you have to take. The discounting rate is going to be the interest or the market interest rate. Whatever the interest rate is there in the market, that market interest rate actually becomes your discounting rate. This is what your $1 has grown into over the period of 50 years into $20 after 50 years. So your discounting rate is the opportunity cost. If say for example by chance your grandparents did not put $1 in the bank account and say for example that $1 note, the currency note or $1 coin, whatever, if that note or a coin was not put in the bank account but it somehow was kept in a that was not put in the bank account, that $1 was actually left out in the wardrobe somewhere, and after 50 years you find that $1, that $1 has remained $1 only. Okay, only if you put in a bank it will grow to $20 after 50 years. But if say for example by mistake your grandparents put that $1 in the wardrobe, and that wardrobe is also remaining after 50 years, and that $1 will also remain in the wardrobe after 50 years, it is not going to change into $20 suddenly when you open the cupboard or a wardrobe. So technically that $1 has remained the same. What have you lost? You have lost the interest rate that the bank would have given you. In case that $1 your grandparents would have kept in the bank at that point of time, but unfortunately they left out in the cupboard or in the wardrobe, and therefore that $1 remained $1 only even after 50 years. So what has it that you have lost? You lose something. Your grandparents have lost something. They have lost the interest that the bank was giving you. That interest is the opportunity cost. The opportunity is lost. The opportunity to grow $1 into $20 is lost because that $1 has remained $1 only. And now, right now, time value of money has reduced. $1 in 1970 was too much. $1 today is nothing in comparison to inflation, and so many things happen, right? This is how we are going to calculate. One thing that you understood simplistically, opportunity cost. One that you have actually foregone. The interest that you have actually foregone. The interest that you are not getting today is known as opportunity cost. So opportunity cost can be your discounting rate, or else what you are going to remember is the required rate of return. What is the discounting rate? It is the required rate of return. The required rate of return is the real rate of return plus the inflation plus the default risk plus the liquidity risk. Say for example that $1 is going to be put in a bank. The bank is a very risky bank. It is not a very strong bank. It is a very risky bank. Okay, small bank with very few branches. Okay, a very risky bank. If you are putting that money in the bank, obviously the bank is going to actually give you more return. Okay, if you put your money in a very strong bank, the interest rates are going to be lower. And if you put your money in some weak bank, the interest rates are going to be higher. Why are the interest rates higher? Because the interest rates are actually calculation of all of these things. Okay, so what are the four things? The real rate of return that is there in the market without the inflation rate, the rate is 4%, just as an example, plus inflation that is going on in the country is 3% inflation is going in the country. Together, real rate of return plus inflation becomes the nominal rate of return. So again, two words that we are learning, real rate and a nominal rate. Real rate means a rate without inflation. Nominal rate means a rate with inflation. So 7% is the nominal rate of return. 4% is the real rate of return. So real rate of return plus inflation together becomes the nominal rate of return plus default risk and liquidity risk. If it is a weak bank, then default risk is going to be high because a weak bank can default any point of time, and liquidity is also not going to be there with the bank, and therefore you add another 1% and 1% to it. Actually it comes to 9%. This is the required rate of return. If you put your money in that particular bank, which is a weak bank, your required rate of return is 9%, which means when you go to that bank, most probably the interest rate that the bank would be offering would be 9%. If you go to a very strong bank, for them, actually the default risk is going to be 0.25 and liquidity risk is also going to be 0.25% only. Technically this comes to around 7.5%, and obviously when you go to some strong bank, the rate of interest that that bank would be offering you would be 7.5%. This is what if instead of keeping the money in the bank, your grandparents forgot to keep the money in bank and they actually left it out in the wardrobe for 50 years. What have you lost? The opportunity cost is you have calculated this. Take this good bank rate 7.5%, which the strong bank is offering. That is what you have actually lost. Your grandparents have lost the interest for all the 50 years. This is your discounted rate. So discounted rates can be the market interest rates, which is nothing but the required rate of return, or the opportunity cost. Fine. Now learning annual interest rate and effective annual rate. Annual interest rate and effective annual rate. Annual interest rate is the simple interest rate which can be broken into any number of periods. Example, if the annual interest rate is 12%, this can be said as 1% monthly interest rate, and therefore 1 divided by 12, we know it is 12%. Or 3% quarterly interest rate, so 3 into 4 is what? 12%. Or 6% on a semi-annual basis, we know that is 12%. So when I use the word annual interest rate, you can cut into any number of parts you want to cut into. If I say 12% is the annual interest rate, then what is the monthly interest rate? Divide this 12 into 12 parts, it comes to 1%. If I say 18% is the annual interest rate, 18% per annum is the annual interest rate, then I know 18 divided by 12 is 1.5% is monthly interest rate. Or 9% is the semi-annual interest rate, or say for example 4.5% is the quarterly interest rate. Annual interest rate you can divide into how many ever parts you want to divide into. You can also divide into daily rates. Divide this 12% into 365 days and you will get the daily rate also. This is what your annual interest rate is, the annual rate. The other thing is effective annual rate. Now remember one thing, if in a bank you are putting $100 today, after 1 year if the bank is giving you back $110, it means the bank is offering you 10% per annum. This is the actual or the rate that we have done, the annual interest rate. The annual interest rate is 10%. After 1 year the bank is giving you hundreds, 110, which is 10% is also your effective annual rate. Now if say for example bank is giving you semi-annual basis interest, if $100 that you have put with the bank is giving you $5 at the end of 6 months and another $5 along with 100 it gives you at the end of 1 year. You know, technically bank has given you more than $110, which means bank is giving you, you have actually given $100 to bank, so you will have to take this as negative 100 also. Always remember, negative will come in the starting because you are giving to the bank $100, you are putting it in the bank. Now bank is giving you $5 at the end of 6 months, and then $5 along with 100 as the principal that you have paid, it is giving you back 105 at the end of 1 year. Now what is happening is, this 5 that you have got at the end of 6 months, remember, in finance money never remains idle. Money is never remaining idle, and therefore you are very smart. You put this $5 inside the bank again for 6 months, and for 6 months you are also earning interest on this $5 as well. So this $5 then becomes $5.25 after 6 months. This 5 you have not kept with yourself in the cupboard, but you have actually put that $5 in the bank. Remember, in finance money never remains idle, it is always going to earn some amount of interest. This $5 that you have put in the bank, it has become 5.25 at the end of 1 year, that is 6 months later. Therefore together actually you have got 105 plus 5.25, it comes to 110.25. So technically how much you have earned? The effective annual rate is 10.25% only. Though when you go to the bank will say that the annual interest rate is 10% per annum, but we are going to pay you interest at every 6 months. So in your mind, in the back calculation that you do, in your mind you will have to calculate that no, even though the bank is giving you 10% per annum, you are dividing it into two parts of that 10%. When you divide into two parts, it comes to $5 and $5. This is what you have done over here, right? Because you have divided this 10% into two parts, 5% for 6 months and 5% for another 6 months. But the effective annual rate that you know in your mind is 10.25%. So even though bank is giving you 10%, but in your mind you know that they are giving you 5% for first half and 5% for another half. That is your semi-annual basis that they are paying you, and therefore in reality the effective annual rate is 10.25%. If one bank is giving you 10% per annum on an annual basis and another bank is giving you 10% per annum on a semi-annual basis, put your money in that other bank which is paying you 10% on a semi-annual basis, because the effective annual rate for that bank is 10.25%, and the first bank is 10% only because that is paying you after 1 year exactly 10%. This bank is paying you 10% but into two parts, because you have divided into two parts, 5% and 5%, and the earlier 5% that you get, this is having a higher value. This 5 is actually 5.25 worth. In later on future it is compounded to 5.25, and therefore 10.25 is the effective annual rate. So how are we going to calculate the effective annual rate? Whatever, we got 10.25 right now, right? That 10% became 10.25. So how did you get that 10.25? You are going to do 1 plus annual rate is how much? 10%. 10% is actually 0.10. Okay. So whenever I write percentage, if you want to remove the percentage and you want to write it in decimal format, then that percentage, once it gets removed, what happens is the 0, it was 10 percentage. So what happens is when you remove this 0, this point moves from here to here. So this has now become 0.10. Correct? So 10% is actually 0.10. I want to just tell you this thing. 10% divide by, we are dividing into two parts, right? Semi-annual basis. N to the power n. So that is 2 only over here. So it comes to 1 plus 0.05 to the power 2. This 10% is 0.1, divided by 2 is 0.05. So it is 1.05 square. So when you do that, it comes to 1.05, and then y to the power x and 2 and then equal to, or else square is already given over here as x square. So just click on punch on x square, you get 1.1025. That one you will have to remove, that one that you have added over here, that one you will have to remove. So minus 1, you get 0.1025. Multiply by 100, you get 10.25. So 10.25 and then put a percentage, because you have got 0.1025. so when you put percentage, you can use 10.25. So actually the effective annual rate is 10.25%. So 10% you have converted into 10.25% with this particular formula. The formula is 1 plus annual rate divided by n to the power n, and then minus 1 that you will have to use. Whenever you have added 1 for interest compounding principle that you have used, you will have to also reduce that 1. Anyways, it's okay if we don't write 1 as well, but when you look at the answer, you will immediately come to know 1.1025 means that 1 you will have to remove it out. Fine. We'll move to a question. Let us move. What is the EAR for annual interest rate of 9.5% compounded quarterly? So what is the question? They are telling you what is the EAR for an annual interest rate which is compounded quarterly. So if quarterly means 4 times a year, so effective annual rate is 1 plus 9.5% divided by 4 to the power 4. So let us do that. How are we going to do? Look over here. First you do 9.5 percentage. 9.5 percentage means don't do 0.95. 9.5 percentage means 0.095. So do just clear working notes. Clear. 0.095 divided by 4 is equal to, so you get answer of this particular thing, plus 1 is equal to, so you get answer of whole of this thing. Now you want to move up, so y to the power x, so now you are up, 4 is equal to, so you get 1.0984. you have to remove that 1 as well, so it comes to 0.0984. if I want to move this point from year to year by 2 decimal digits, it comes to 9.84, and then percentage is what I will be using because we have removed that decimal 2 times ahead. This is what your 9.84 is. So a bank giving you 9.5% compounded quarterly interest rate, or another bank giving you 9.84% annual interest rate, both means one and the same only, because this particular is having an effective annual rate of 9.84% only. Right? This is how we are going to calculate from annual interest rate to effective annual rate, and same way even from effective annual rate you can go behind to annual interest rate. This is what your question